Welcome to Just a Few More Minutes podcast, where three veterans of the animation and video game industry talk about exactly that, animation video games. I am one of your hosts. I am Jeff Gabor. I am an animator at Blue Sky Studios, and alongside me is...
Michael Berardini. I am also an animator at Blue Sky Studios. And it's great to be here.
Yeah, it is. Good to see you, man. And to my other side is...
Pete Paquette.
Yeah.
Another animator.
Just another animator.
And Mikey's over here chowing on froyo.
Hey, man.
If you hear that, like, lip smacking sound.
I was at dinner. I knew we were recording tonight, but dinner went tremendously long due to very poor service. And my wife wanted froyo afterwards, so we had to fucking get that going.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, this is a very special episode. This is a look back on our first year's animation tips, so it's probably going to be a whole lot of me jibber-jabbering.
Most likely.
Hopefully you guys have good quips. It's been a while since I've heard those, so hopefully you're in there.
So what exactly...
You were pretty much like the king of it in the first year.
I mean, he is the Annie winner, Jeff Gabor, so basically anything he says goes. Am I right, everybody?
Well, I mean, he's also ready every time.
That's true. He prepares.
He prepares.
Well, before we get to that, hopefully this episode gets shared. If you like it, please check in on our other episodes where we talk. We try to split it up. Some episodes are mainly video games. Others are all animation. Some, if this is your first time listening, I highly recommend going back and listening to the episode with Mike Walling or our more recent episode with Gwen Frey. Two of the best episodes I think we did. So if you like this, check those out.
Also, episode 32. It's a good one.
Whatever. I'm sure that one was good. They're all good, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty
sure.
funny.
The call-in episode was especially good. Dear Lord.
I wonder which one was episode 32. Sorry, I'm not going to derail us, but
the first year might be interesting. I actually haven't listened back yet to... hopefully that's good. Hopefully this is a good podcast. But we were really drunk the first year.
Yeah.
We got a lot of requests.
A lot of growing pains, really.
Yeah, but we got a lot of requests to get drunk again. I think those were our best years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really changed when I moved away, and then we couldn't get shit-faced and then walk home.
Yeah, that was quite a treat, a pleasant treat for me.
Yeah, not having to drive is always a good thing when doing these sort of things.
Well, is there anything we want to say real quick before this? Any quick updates, like the fact that Pete is half robot now?
Yep, they cut me open. I had the surgery on my arm and hand, my elbow and my wrist, and that went smoothly. Just kind of dealing with post-operation pain and numbness and stuff. So I feel confident that I'll get my feeling back in my hand.
Stay away from those opiates, man. They'll make you constipated.
Yeah, well, they hooked me up. So
all right.
That's why I might seem a little red and loopy in the video.
You look real good, though.
Yeah,
look at all that hair you got on your head.
Show the camera that scar under your arm. Let's give that a look.
The wrist?
Oh, God.
Or the arm.
The arm.
I'm eating froyo here.
Yeah. It still hasn't healed very well. The elbow one. It's kind of nasty.
Man, it's a week old. Anyway, what are we about to listen to, Jeff? Can you sum it up for me, just so I know?
Well, we'll go from episode 1 through 25, where each episode begins with an animation tip. So whether we're talking video games or animation or movies, we always try to start with an animation tip. It can be anything from a Maya trick, or it can be just a helpful tip that we've learned through the years about like the discipline of animation or workflow. Sometimes some of them are actually about video game tips rather than just film. So there's a healthy dose and variety. I don't really remember what's all in the first year, but I think it's some of the basics because those ones came easy.
Yeah, and you always like I was really bad about carrying animation tips around for quite a while until I really saw how you handled it. You're just like, yeah, okay, every week, bang, here's like 10 animation tips.
Hey, man, I will say that the number one thing that I see that separates successful animators and ones that really struggle is workflow. So the more tips and tricks and workflow that you can speed yourself up and get comfortable with animation, and you start being able to experience working on your ideas versus just the practical making of the animation, then the better you are. Like, definitely I feel like Michael's strong suit, just to talk about an animator, is his ideas. Like, that's where his success is, and that's what what's valued about Michael. And that's a good sign, because you're not sitting there noodling animation with him. You're enjoying his ideas.
And looking past the bad animation.
Because the ideas are so good.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
That's not what I meant.
Hopefully we don't repeat ourselves. Hopefully there will be some culling of this, if just in case we do.
I'm not just gonna slap it together. I'll curate it if I have to.
All right. Good.
What about you guys? Like, how have you been?
Everything's going good over here. Work, I think, for both of us is quite stressful, and the fact that we have a whole lot of movie in a little itty bitty little time, and it's gonna get tough real quick. So it's gonna be a tough summer.
Yep. We got stressful personal shit going on.
Yeah.
Not going to get into that, but also I just had to drop $1,000 on my car today, so that was really fun too.
You got into a car wreck, didn't you?
That's separate to what I had to pay for. That was in Mindy's car. This was my car. Was
good.
Yeah. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I just rear-ended someone.
Well, I'm not going to say anything, but I'll make the face.
Yeah. Anyway.
You're okay, though? Everything's good?
Yeah, it was dumb, and we weren't going that fast. Should have been paying attention, but it was rainy.
The cat says you're lying.
Yeah, Rilo made an appearance.
Mindy put him in here with me, so. Yeah, so that's what's going on with me.
Yeah.
You guys been playing anything?
Fortnite? Yeah. A lot of Fortnite, Michael?
I started playing Fortnite, really bad at it, so I don't enjoy it very much. Yeah. Let's see. Played through and beat God of War, platinumed it, lovely game. Played through Shadow of the Colossus, didn't platinum it, probably not gonna. Still a lovely game. And now I am playing Mad Max, because it was free last month, pretty good game. And Detroit comes out tomorrow, so I'm gonna play that.
Oh, yeah. Man, that's been a long time in the making.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Pete? Well, for me, I've been playing mostly in the time that I've had to just kind of recover. I've been playing games on and off for a few minutes, but I've been kind of dabbling with Owlboy. And
oh yeah,
man, I'm telling you, that game is a masterpiece.
Really?
I absolutely adore it. And it has such a good intro. It just really makes you feel for the character.
I started playing it. I think it's a very good game. It sort of feels like playing a Miyazaki movie because it's so intricately detailed, and it had way more story than I anticipated. But I also really don't like the flying animation, and you're flying the entire game for the most part. And it really bugs me. Because it's like a very even, constant up and down that never changes, even if you change directions or anything. It's just a tiny nitpick, but I felt like that game was in development for so long, they could have added a second cycle into that.
Well, I'm sorry for your animation snobbery. But
it was a very good game. I'd put it down, though. But I'm glad you love it, Pete.
I do. I love that game.
I love you. So.
And I've also been playing occasionally some Fortnite still with my son. And me and Jeff were having a discussion beforehand how it seems like in this game everybody is at the same place as everybody else. Everybody's like, man, I feel like I'm getting better, but I only get like 1 or 2 kills around.
I mean, I just plain straight up suck, so
Yeah,
I don't feel like I'll get better.
there's a handful, a couple people that are really good, and then the rest of us all just get our ass kicked. Like, we're just cannon fodder.
Yep.
I feel really good when I get 2 kills in a match. Really good.
Yeah, I know. And maybe that's the whole like addictive nature of it is, you know, sometimes we'll grant you a win.
Well, the crazy thing about the game is the Battle Pass thing. Have either of you guys bought the Battle Pass?
Yeah, yeah.
I will say it's an ingenious tool to make you addicted to the game. Because it motivates you to keep playing. It's like, well, if you do this little task and this task, then you can unlock more and more stuff. Unlock. And it really is like, oh, well, I got to check in today. I'll do the daily task today, and it'll just take me 1 match. Oh, no, I got killed too fast, so it'll take me another match. And it keeps you bringing back because you want to get another dance or another skin or you want to get the mask on your outfit or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
It is stupid. It's a fucking free game that you can get the full experience without paying anything, which is great, by the way.
And I'll pray to it.
I heard a very interesting strategy based on skins in this game. I forget where I heard it, but somebody told me, they were like, no, do not get skins. You want to know why? He's like, because the people, when they perceive you, when they see you in the brand new skin, they think you are a good player. So if you actually, like, they think by default that you're a good player, so they go to you first to try and take you down.
All right. I don't know how much I put into that theory.
I mean, I definitely did consider that. As like, everyone knows that since I haven't bought anything, I haven't spent much time in this game, they know to fucking kill me.
See, that I thought it was the other way. Like what Michael's saying, it's like, oh, there's a noob. I'm gonna go after that asshole. That's some low-hanging fruit.
Yep, that's me. Let the cat out.
Maybe I said it wrong. Maybe it's very possible I said it wrong.
It's fine. All right. Well, I hope
you got what I was saying.
I know what you're saying. You're saying 180 degrees of what you said.
Sorry, man. It's a little strong this evening.
You gotta kill the pain somehow, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Let us know if you like it. All 4 of you. Let us know if you thought it was a good idea, because then we'll release year number 2 of tips and tricks. We're going to follow this up. What we have upcoming is hopefully another episode with Ron Pucciarelli to talk about God of War and the success of that and the animation in it, as well as an episode where we bring a whole lot of new animation tips all in a single episode. So there's some good stuff ahead. Hope you enjoy this one. Any last words, boys?
Oh.
Stay animating.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with no further ado, let's get into Michael.
It's for the YouTube crowd, man.
What up, YouTube?
Yeah.
All right. With no further ado, let's get to those animation tips. All right, so this week's quick tip for aspiring animators. Orient your root, god, or world mover as the first thing you do when you're beginning a shot. You want to ask yourself, what are the primary directions that your character is going to walk and perform? That way you can read your graph editor. Because the last thing you want to do is get halfway through splining your shot and realize your character is primarily walking diagonally, meaning you're using the X and the Z to simply walk one direction. So, rotate.
I would like to point out that professional animators fuck up on this.
Yeah, right.
All the time. I still do.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm dealing with that right now with just a simple gun that's bouncing around. It's
So this is really a pro tip that I will use tomorrow.
Well, it comes from Jeff Gabor, the
Annie winner. But
Annie
Jeff
winner, yeah.
Gabor. Look at that hair.
Now I'm going to take another sip of whiskey.
Whiskey from our homeland, Colorado.
It's good.
Except Pete.
But that is, in terms of like talking about, you can have great poses and whatnot, and even have good acting, but you can't necessarily always count on speed unless you do a lot of little small things like setting up your scene correctly, and that will speed you up. So this week's tip is about muting channels. So a great way to help your polish and to figure out little issues you may be having when you're trying to figure out little pops and clicks and whatnot is you want to isolate different body parts. So you can just go, especially in Maya, you can grab any of the channels, XYZ, translate, right-click in the channel box, and just mute it. And that's going to lock it at its current position. So what I like to do is basically mute the entire body and just watch the pelvis mover and finesse the translates and then the rotates. And this is all, and then you add, like, say, the spine mover, and then you add the neck and the head and whatnot. And this is what I really like to do with the head is during nods. You just, do your translates if you have any translates on the heads, which is relatively rare.
He's a master of the nods, by the way.
So good with the nods. But, so first do the X, rotate X, and have rotate Y and Z still muted. So that way you can just do your yes first.
Like Muppets.
Yeah. So you get that finesse, you know exactly, like usually a really fast nod is about 3 frames. Anything less than 3 frames is going to look stroby.
Getting detailed, man.
Getting detailed. So then you do your Y and then your Z last. So that's a good way to finesse your polish, because a lot of reels that we're seeing, at least for Blue Sky Studios, the one thing that is very consistent is a lack of final polish. Muting channels.
Also a lack of polish in all of my shots.
Oh yeah, you could just get someone else to polish your shot, yeah.
You could also use the layer editor and put your nod in after the fact, if you're interested in using animation layers.
Yeah.
I'm scared of layers. I use them sometimes, but only for like when I have everything blocked in and then I want to add something extra, but I won't ever, they're not like part of my workflow.
Well, I use them very sparingly. Let me make that perfectly clear. I use the animation layer editor for, like, things like a head shake or things like jittering.
Yeah, jittering's great.
I don't use it for. I don't like go fucking go fucking crazy with it. I just use it for very specific things.
Look at all these tips we just gave you, youngsters and old folk, and no one in between.
And then we did that in all just a few minutes.
That's right.
All right, this week we're going to talk about analyzing reference. I feel like
this one's for you, Amid.
Well, this is a pretty big subject, man. We're going to be talking about this for a while.
I'm going to summarize it really quickly. I wrote it down, so I'm going to just burn through it.
You wrote a lot.
All right.
Get ready, everyone. Sit back, relax, eat some fucking Pop-Tarts.
I don't want to talk about getting a reference. This is assuming you already have good reference. So how do you break it down to its essential movements, and how do you especially analyze the subtle ones? What in your reference makes it feel the way it does? A great way, basically, with your reference to isolate the best stuff out of it is not by scrubbing your reference. I see a lot of animators actually, like, on YouTube, like, scrubbing their animation, or in QuickTime scrubbing, like, oh, what does that feel like? What does it feel like? And they're going back and forth, and they're trying to get the feeling of it. That's not actually a really great way to see what's actually moving. What you need to do on your reference is actually put it in Premiere or some other software that you can set keys on your video, and then you can toggle between the two poses. So you find your storytelling poses within your reference, set keys, and then toggle between it. And these super complex moves that you think are like, wow, there's so much moving in the reference, when you just toggle between the two poses, you see how actually little is moving, and that you can isolate exactly why something feels the way it does. So that is my pro tip on analyzing reference, is to pick your storytelling poses and toggle between it, and then you can apply that and try to caricature it and push it in your own animation but at least you have the understanding of why something feels the way it does.
Yes. Now, when you're saying toggle between it, what do you mean exactly?
Like stepping between the two poses. So it'd be like going from one key to another key in your animation.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you don't have any of you don't have the full video in there. You just have your poses.
Yeah. So you're like, all right, here's my storytelling. Like you say you did your first pose and you're like, all right, now I need to get somewhere to over here, but it looks like a lot of shit is moving. The temptation by animators is to start like, all right, it's a little bit in the hips. I'm going to move the hips. Now it's this spine. Now it's this spine. Now it's this spine mover. And now you've all of a sudden moved 4 different spine movers. And then, all right, it kind of feels like his clavicles are moving. All right, I'll just go ahead and move him up a little bit. Then his neck. And then you have 3 different neck joints. If you were to analyze the reference in a more isolated way, you would see it's just the pelvis is moving and the spine is actually really rigid. And that's why it feels the way it does. That way, you end up being a lot cleaner with your animation because you're moving less stuff, but you're still capturing exactly why something feels the way it does.
Yeah, because if you overblock and then you go to spline, you always end up having to drop stuff, or you forget that you moved the hips by like 2 degrees anyway. So
yeah, setting too many keys in your blocking, even though it'll feel right in blocking, is a disaster when you start to spline, and then you end up just trying to recreate your blocking while you're splining, and that's why I think a lot of animators complain about hating splining so much because they spend so much of their time just trashing their blocking. So
you just
see, that's like the complete opposite of what I do with my reference. Is I'll just basically rotoscope the video that I chose, and then delete frames. So I'm basically getting taking double the amount of time. So that's a good hint. That's a good tip.
It's all about workflow, bras. Whatever works. Whatever floats your boat and gets you to
there is that phrase,
ocean.
Whatever works gets it there, but there are better ways. So, in terms of animation, this is a little bit pertaining to a very select group. This is talking about people, and actually, you know what? This is actually, no, wait, I take it back.
Here we go.
This is our most widely accessible note or suggestion or what do we call these? Tips for people across a lot of different areas.
So you went from incredibly specific to including everybody in the world.
Yeah, right. So at first it's going to sound like it was narrow, but it's very large.
Okay.
The tip is perception is everything.
Oh, my.
Okay. So this isn't talking about a specific thing like graph editors or setting up your scene like we talked before. This is, let's at least get to the right topic here. All right. This is advice about how it can apply to very many jobs. So specifically to animation, so many animators show way too early to their supervisors for feedback.
Which is what we're told to do.
Right. So the main phrase is show early, show often.
Yep.
Do not ever do that. This is specifically for animators that just start out in the industry. I was given a very important bit of advice when I first started at Blue Sky, which was, for the love of God, do not show your first pass to the supervising animators. The reason why you do that is because the supervising animators, and this is especially true if you're a contract hire or a temp animator looking to get additional work in the future from the studio you're at.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is because you want the supervisors to have the feeling that you can handle anything at any time, that it comes easy to you, and that you can, whatever shots you're given, you don't really struggle. So what you want to do is make sure you show the leads. You want to show whoever generally the department sees as the animation leadership that's not the supervisors. Show them early, show them often, get their advice, make your shots look incredibly good. Now, you don't want to like your idea pass or whatever, your blocking pass, not blocking, your idea pass or maybe like thumbnails, you can show those to soups, get your ideas bought off on. But your animation, the execution part of it, show that to the leads and lead animators. These are the experienced people in the department. You should be able to know who those people are, show them, get their advice, have them work out all the kinks, and then when you look like a goddamn genius, show the supervisors. Because then, guess who is all of a sudden perceived as a brilliant animator? You've taken all the advice of these experienced animators. You don't tell them you asked them anything, and then all of a sudden you look like a god.
That's like the biggest fucking animation secret that we've ever given out.
Yeah, it's almost a scam, I'd say.
It is so important. I think it was Hans Dastrup, who's now a supervising animator over at DreamWorks, that told me that when I first came to Blue Sky. And it couldn't have been more accurate. Like, I remembered one of my very first shots of Blue Sky was this Sid shot where he walks up into screen on Ice Age 2 and he goes, "What?" And I showed so early to the supervising animator, Mike Thurmeyer, that he couldn't help but laugh at how bad my animation was.
That's the worst.
He gave a little show like, and I was like, oh, dear God, my soul is crushed.
Yep.
And from then on, I took his advice, like, show everybody else. I showed Hans over and over again. I showed this guy named Juan Carlos Navarro over again. I showed you, Pete. I showed everybody in my surrounding area way before I would show the soups. Still trying to do it in a timely manner, because the last thing you want is also the soups to think you're too slow. But it's a huge tip, and it's something that's never talked about. Maybe it's dropped a little bit. Maybe you went to Animation Mentor. Did they ever mention anything like that?
I mean, not particularly. They do talk about like brainstorming with your peers and everything, which I think is also very, very essential to find like the great idea before you just pitch your one idea and then they're like, nope, that's not really going to work. But then, blah de blah.
Our tip this week that I said a half hour ago is scout your scene. Scout your scene. Make sure you open up your Maya file, toggle that or at least tumble the camera around, see what obstacles are in your way, see what props are available, see what sets available. Is there a tree trunk? Is there a rock? Is there anything that you can use? Count out your steps. Put your character in like a contact pose where the legs, are like each at their extremes. And count how many paces it is if it's a walking and talking shot. So that way when you jump into the reference room, you can make sure you duplicate that. Okay, he's got to go 6 steps. I'm going to make sure 6 steps are planned out. So you know how to hit your marks, just like a Broadway actor would know how to hit his marks to be in the right lighting, into the right camera space, whatever. You can do that too in your reference room to make sure you're doing the very best you possibly can. Did you have a nasty burp?
I just had a real nasty burp. I was hoping you didn't smell it.
I didn't, but you're acting like that was nasty.
I smelt it over here.
Yeah, you did. It's a digital burp.
So we went into a lot more detail in the last half hour, but I'm about done talking about it, right?
That's about as much as we went into. I called you crazy for going into that much detail for your reference.
Because he was like putting tape on the ground and shit.
Yeah, just so we don't, not say anything that was important. I would just use an example. On Epic, I had a shot where Bomba came in to his house and he was going to open the refrigerator. So I made sure to count out how many paces he went. And since it was such an extreme amount of, like, short amount of time for him to get there, I was able to duplicate that when I shot reference and really make myself move, and I could use 100% of that reference because I duplicated the exact number of paces and steps and speed that he had to move, and my reference was as usable as possible. Because you can't really cheat when it's tied to dialogue. You can't be like, oh, I need an extra second to get from here to here. There's dialogue. You got what you got. You better move them.
My tip of the week would probably be something that either 2D or 3D animators could take advantage of. And I thought I'd talk about effective thumbnailing. And I think you can thumbnail using video reference. I think you can thumbnail using animation reference done by other people. I think you can just sort of act things out without taking any reference at all and sort of make notes with thumbnailing. I think it all sort of like thumbnailing is something you can do regardless of your process, just to kind of get into whatever piece of animation you're working on, whether it's a shot or whether it's something you're doing on your own. And for me, the way that I feel that I thumbnail most effectively is, well, one, like my sketchbook, I always have it in landscape. I always have it longer than it is tall because I like, animating in rows.
They're the coolest sketchbooks ever. BJ works with the weirdest fucking sketchbooks.
They're very long because I like looking across the page. I think that's really important. But before I actually do thumbnailing like on any piece of animation, I actually like doing a page of just pose exploration, just to look for staging options and timing. And this can happen all over the page. It doesn't have to happen in any order. It can happen across a couple pages. But I like just exploring and not worrying about what the drawings look like. And, and I actually like thumbnailing in pen, so there's no option to erase.
What?
Oh, I got something to add there.
Okay.
This is definitely like just inside stuff, but I wish I had the name brand. But in our supply closet is a bunch of erasable pens now.
Oh, really?
At work.
Why would anybody want that? That's the stupidest thing in the world.
You know what it is? People will go, hey, look, and they'll draw something with their pen, and then they'll flip it around and erase it. And that's the only time they'll use it. Isn't that cool?
But I use it for drawing it, erasing all my lines, and then saying, look how confidently I can draw.
The truth comes out.
Take that page of thumbnails that you're doing and develop your confidence over that page, and don't worry about what things look like. Evolve it across the page, flip it over, rip it out, tear it up, whatever. But allow yourself that time to explore and not worry too much about what your drawings look like. When I start finding poses that I feel like are staged well and they're going to start working in communicating the idea that I want to communicate, then I flip to a new page, and then I'm thinking about animating in rows. And I'll usually thumbnail. I'm not animating, but thumbnailing. I'll usually thumbnail in rows, and sometimes the thumbnails go 3 rows or 2 rows, just depending on how detailed I want the action to be broken down in. But the important thing that I do when I'm animating across that row is I usually will draw a horizontal line, regardless of whether it's by the feet or by the hips or by the head. And what that horizontal line does for me is it really articulates sort of the bouncing ball of the animation, the ups and downs. Cool. If you don't have that in your thumbnailing process, I don't know how you find the rhythm otherwise. And so, if the head drops down in anticipation, if you follow that horizontal line across, you're going to know if that head drops a half a head or a full head or whatever. So it's a nice little point of reference. And usually my drawings will get bigger over time, across the page as I thumbnail, or they'll get smaller, or they'll run off the page or whatever, but I'll always have that line as a reference point. And sometimes I put that line through the hips if the hips are the thing that have the most up and down in the action. Or if the character leaves the ground, if they're jumping or something, that line will definitely be a ground plane line, just so I get, the feeling, the sense of the rhythm of the scene from that.
Has this technique developed over time, just like doing it on a line? Because I don't think I've ever progressed my thumbnails to that point where I'm actually be able to see the ups and downs.
It did, because I was missing the ups and downs in the animation. I was feeling like I was doing anticipation drawings, but it wasn't dropping as much as I would want to when I finally went to actually doing the keys. And I was wondering, well, why isn't that it? Why isn't that present? Then I'd look back at my thumbnails and I wouldn't see that sort of undulation of the action. And so then I started making reference lines just to communicate to myself so I wouldn't forget about that.
Do you do little notes about like when that's happening and compared to the dialogue and all that?
Oh, I love arrows. I love directional arrows. What things are moving down, what things are moving up.
Not to mention they make your sketchbook look more like a mad genius.
Yeah.
It's like, look at me, I'm paying attention to the hips movement. I'm fucking amazing.
I will probably thumbnail the transitions less. They just need to be directional. Mm-hmm. I just kind of need to know where things are going, where they're ending up. And I need to know whether they're moving up or down or forward or back. And those reference lines really help. So that'd be my overall tip if you guys feel like you're not getting enough from your thumbnails.
All right, this is a cool one. And I did think of Simmons when I thought about this, because I was like, what does Simmons hate in animation more than anything else?
Well, did you say what he does?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Let's not even get into it.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so Simmons is the creator of New Go Games.
I would say the quad creator. There's 4 of us that own the studio, but I'm not sure you can be a quad creator, but either way. Thank you.
But I'm going to say if there was anybody that couldn't be replaced, it's you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I'm going to just talk you up that way.
Sounds good.
Simmons is old school, man. He's been there since before I was.
Oh, yeah.
He's the original. He's the real deal.
Yeah, how long you been at Blue Sky?
13 years.
13 weeks.
It's my 13th day. I'm almost at 2 weeks total.
So that's very impressive. A long time to be at Blue Sky Studios, and that whole time, let's turn down the game. And so you are Your job? I don't even actually know. What is your actual job title now?
Animation technical lead, which means whatever you want it to mean. A little bit of everything. Gotta make sure that everything is done right. It's tough for about 1,000 animators to do the same thing, so gotta make sure that happens and figure out the processes, all that fun stuff, and quality control, how to make the movie simpler and completable and good.
I give Simmons a lot of credit, but I feel like he deserves even more credit than I give him because you do way more than I think that you do. And you're pretty great at your job.
Yeah, and not to mention, you do actually a lot of stuff that has to do with the crowd as well.
Yeah, I do. I used to do just about every crowd shot on the movies. It's switched over more to supervision, along with the crowd supervisor. We do a lot of work together in tandem.
I love tandem stuff, tandem activities.
Skydiving.
So when we're talking about,
very similar. Yeah.
you definitely overlook our work, the animators' work, and you're trying to fix maybe issues sometimes, some problems that animators leave behind, and cleaning up any kind of duty that sits behind. So in that vein, that's where the animation tip of the week comes from, because the one thing that you hate more than anything, enter my passcode. That's what he wants me to play. He wants to play with my phone. So we're going to put some music behind this. How about that? All right. So animation tip of the week. Ground planes. Ground plane and contact is absolutely key to any animator. So I pay special attention by adding a additional element called a shadow.
What? I've never heard of a shadow.
A shadow. But you can't, there's viewpoint, isn't it viewpoint? Viewpoint 2.0? Viewport 2.0. I don't like it. It slows down and
not
it doesn't.
Supported.
Yeah, and it's not supported. Blue sky. But even for people that are just doing their own work at home, I find that it's not all that effective. But you can do a really quick, cheap ground plane shadow. So what you do is you create a cylinder. All right, everybody create that really flat cylinder, a teeny tiny little circle. Place it just under your character, underneath the root, at the ground plane, where the feet are touching the ground. Okay, now give it a very transparent black shader. Okay, now scale it up and duplicate it 10 times. Each progressive cylinder being a little bit bigger than the one previous. And now you have a shadow that's slowly fading out. You group that all together and then you constrain it to your character's body, but not the up and down. Yeah, just the X and the Y movement, so that it'll follow anywhere where your character will go, but when the character jumps in the air, it will still show a shadow on the ground. Now this is really good because when you do feet contact, you can do shadows just for the feet as well, so you can feel exactly when the character makes contact. This has additional benefits of actually helping your character feel like it has weight to it, because without really feeling when the feet hit the ground, the exact very frame it hits, without that shadow information, you can't really feel the weight. So this not only helps Simmons' team to understand exactly and making sure the ground plane is always being contacted and we don't have floating characters, but it also helps sell the weight to the directors. It's win-win. All right, so one thing that I actually have a problem with, and I think a lot of people have an issue with, is when we get cast super complicated physical shots. Not shocks.
Shocks are bad too.
Yeah, shocks are really bad.
Shocking.
So, shots. So I find the best way to do that and not to get overly worried about the actual form of the character, because in 3D the rigs can be definitely heavy, right? And when you have a super complicated physical shot, you have to put a ton of poses, a pose every other frame or sometimes every frame, just to get the actual animation to read. So the tip is, and maybe some people already did this and this is somewhat obvious.
Here we go.
But take it back to a bouncing ball. I do this all the time with physical shots, is make a ball roughly the size of your character, or maybe just the hip area. Take that bouncing ball and animate that. It's 24 frames per second. You isolate that and you animate it all the way through. You get to play with timing. You get to experiment a lot with taking out frames, and it's super fast feedback. A lot of times you don't even need to play blast because you can just simply do it in shot. So, like, I'm working on a super complicated, like, dancing shot right now, and it's all timed to music. And having a little bouncing ball, you get to feel the rhythm of the music, you get to feel the rhythm of the shot, you get to know when to do slow moves, fast moves, and you get to experiment super, super fast. And then, as an added bonus, you can take that into maybe like a 2D animated program and draw over the top of your ball for your main hero poses, and you get to be lightning fast.
Holy shit!
Yeah, that's for extra frosting.
Extra frost.
But I've been doing
extra juice.
Yeah, I've been doing the bouncing ball thing forever, and it works really well.
Actually, I was just talking to our friend Tab, who we work with. He just set up, well, someone else set it up for him, but a hotkey that basically creates a sphere and then brings it straight in front of the camera, because he apparently works with spheres all the time to do exactly that. And this is just like a nice workflow that gets everything set up for him to start doing that immediately.
That's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, one thing to do, like when you do that, is to make sure the same thing. Our very, very first animation tip was to orient the God node to the camera. It's very good to do that with your spheres too. So I wonder if that script does that, because basically
it does.
Yeah, see, then it's gold. I gotta ask Tab about that because I spend way too much time setting it up.
The tip. Well, this tip I have to dedicate to a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, Cameron Fielding. He works at
I know
Valve.
him, and he does some amazing stuff.
Yeah, he and I worked together at PDI for 3.5 years, and I remember when I was working on a shot, and it was a physical shot and creatures, and I remember the character needed to go from like point A to point B to point C. And I was sitting there spending all this time blocking with a character. You, as an animator, as an inexperienced animator, as I was, you tend to get bogged down with the details. You especially when a character has like wings and it's a quadruped. And so he's like, Ron, the way you're blocking this thing is like fucking absolute shit. Just stop right now. He's like, take a primitive and animate the primitive. Get your beats nailed in with the primitive, and establish some of your timing and your staging, where the character is going to move around within the space. And that was especially important, especially like at a time when DreamWorks was kind of trying to bring 3D back into theaters. So like it really, you had to almost think like a gamer, where your character in the 3D space mattered a lot. You couldn't just cheat to the camera.
Right.
So that's basically the tip, is just if you're animating a physically intense shot where your character's moving around, animate a primitive. Make that primitive read, and then copy the animation from the primitive over to your character, and or rotoscope your primitive, and just like the primitive is just like a nice foundation to blocking.
So what kind of shot was that? Was that like a fighting shot, or?
It was it was just. Let me think of this.
Because I was curious, like
I should have thought about the shots too.
Say that again.
No, I said I should have thought about the shot. I think it was a shot on one of the How to Train Your Dragon movies. It was I just remember it was Toothless, like jumping from point A to point B and like settling in point C, and
right.
And I was kind of spending a lot of time, what are the wings going to look like, and where are they going to be placed, and where are his front legs and where are his back legs, and it's like that stuff doesn't fucking matter. Just get the think about the character as a whole, as a primitive, because that's how it's going to read best, right?
Yep.
It's not about the details. The details are all the afterthought.
So what, when you have a big character like Toothless and you're breaking it down to just a primitive shape, are you roughing in just one major primitive shape, or like what about the tail and the mass of the wings and all
right
that?
Well, I tried to simplify the tip, but I mean I would get a little bit more involved in that. I would have two primitives, like two spheres. One would be like the shoulder mass, and the other half would be the hip mass. So I'd get some like follow through in there and overlap in the blocking of my primitives.
There's some guys at work that basically created entire rigs out of primitives for a character that I don't know if it was.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say that.
This is Buck.
Yeah, Buck.
I didn't know if he was in the trailers for the new Ice Age, whatever. But basically, they recreated him with primitives, and they just attach it, constrain it to the rig, and then just hide the actual rig, and then you have like a primitive version of Buck that's like insanely fast that you can get your blocking pass done in like no time at all.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And what was actually really cool about sort of getting used to working that way when it came to physics, because I did a lot of physical stuff when I was at DreamWorks, but the software that we were using was all proprietary. DreamWorks invested like $3 million or something like that to create its own proprietary animation software package. And when we got to around the second How to Train Your Dragon, it was really nice because they had like a drawing tool implemented in the 3D software, and everybody had a Cintiq. So when I would block something out with a primitive, I'd be able to start drawing over the, drawing in like drawing my frames, drawing like how that tail is going to look, how the tail is going to flourish around when the character spins around, and it was like it answered a lot of questions early on before you would even get to blocking the actual character. I'm the type of animator that likes to plan like hell to know exactly as close to what the intent of the shot is and how I'm going to get there before I invest any time.
Totally.
Moving anything around. Once you get to that point as an animator where you feel like you're just moving shit around, stop.
So this is something I wrote about on my blog not too long ago.
Oh, no.
It is burnout and how you deal with it.
Oh, you could have told me about this 2 weeks ago, Pete.
Hey, you could talk about this for the last 2 years of my carear.
Well,
I'm kidding.
And it's really how I deal with it is very simple.
Jacking off in the bathroom.
That helps, but no, it's only a minuscule amount of time that actually helps out. But so what I do is I tend to keep myself surrounded by things that inspired me as a kid.
Oh shit! I saw this blog post of yours. Yeah.
When I wanted to be an animator, and I have certain books like the Animator's Workbook, and I'll thumb through that, and I'll listen to certain like specific albums like Never Say Die by Black Sabbath, or I'll look at old comic books that I was reading at the time, and I surround myself, I steep myself in this material, because going through all that or listening to that stuff or dealing with having any sort of interaction with anything from that era of my childhood growing up, I remember how badly I wanted to be an animator.
Yep.
And it takes me back to those times, and it puts a lot of things in perspective for me. So it works for me. It's just that's why I'm sharing it.
Yeah, totally. So. I know. I wish I could. I know you were about to say something, Mike, but I was going to say just real quick about how appreciative I am that Blue Sky sends me to schools to give talks, and I went to CTN as well. And those two things, actually, we went to CTN kind of together last year. Mike,
yeah, I just tagged along.
But it was crazy. It makes you so thankful to be and to have the job that you have, because you see so many kids scratching and crawling to get where you are, and then for you, it just happens. You get in your job and you're like, fuck this, God, why can't that be better? Why can't this? And you just start to get super negative. Yeah, and you take it for granted. Yeah, exactly. This is actually a good tip that you can actually use this week. You probably already did this, though.
Don't use?
No, you can use this. I mean, you can use it, but I think you already do. All right. It's about lip sync, and that I'm just going to read right from it. It can be really hard to pare down the proper phonemes of any character, especially like the O's and the M's, to create lip sync that doesn't look too much like chatter. Especially like if you try to do lip sync and you try to put in every phoneme, it starts to chatter really fast, and so the jaw is just sort of flapping around. So I'm actually shocked to know how many animators don't actually shoot lip sync reference. I started doing this, I think, back on Epic a lot, but shooting reference of a close-up of your mouth doing the lip sync really helps. So basically you get the original soundtrack and then you just lip sync over it, and you get every little breath in and breath out and be able to make it look exactly like you're saying it. And then you can really have that reference to basically almost frame by frame and know exactly what jaw shapes and stuff you don't need.
Question for you.
Yeah.
When you record, are you literally just lip syncing, or are you saying it out loud yourself?
I feel super self-conscious always actually saying it.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe it could be better
You're probably
in some
right.
way, but I don't know.
I'll give you that. It probably would be better, but I still don't do it.
Yeah, it would be awkward to...
Yeah.
I don't like saying it out loud when I film reference.
Yeah. I know some people that do it. I just can't. I can't bring myself.
You can always hear them doing it, too.
So, this week comes with an extra bonus tip. M's and B's aren't always a squash phoneme. I cannot stand it. I see so many animators, M's and B's. You go into your little superpose or your library of poses, and your M is always, and your B is always this like squashed mouth, big cheeks, puff shape. Wrong. It is fucking wrong. So I want you to think of the word mom, right? The first M is not the typical M. Your jaw is actually open and your lips are actually trying to stay closed. Right. So you're not, it's not a squash, it's a stretch.
Oh,
the first M is a stretch. It's the second. It's the second.
Like when he's 90 years old.
Hey, it had a very bitter beer face thing from the 90s commercial. But okay, so the second M in mom is the typical squashed M shape. So you get both M's in that one word. Mom. There you go.
You look so dumb.
Mom. But anyways, I really think when you fill your pose libraries for your characters, you need to make sure you have both M's available to animators and both B's available. You need the open mouth or the jaw open with the lips closed, and you need the squash shape. It makes it so much better. Let's do that.
Nah, I'm going to stick with squash.
Yeah, you're right. All right, so I use this. I got this from Graham Silva when he started at Blue Sky. He showed me this overlay that he was using on top of his scenes, and it actually helped me a lot. It was it's a basic thing, but it's just a field chart. The field chart. Do you use the field chart? Yeah, field chart.
Yeah.
Field.
I mean, sometimes.
Well, let's talk about why. So sometimes understanding spacing or movement of a character can be difficult, especially with complicated characters that have a lot of moving parts and whatnot, and especially when there's a moving camera. Sometimes you're seeing your spacing or seeing the background move in relation to your character. It sometimes gets confusing on the spacing, or is the character moving straight up, or is it moving just to the right, or is my arc nice and clean? Well, putting on your field chart actually helps you see your character in relation to the screen space rather than being distracted by everything else moving. So putting that on helps you know how far your character's moving in terms of spacing in between poses, and then also just making sure it's moving in a nice arc as well. So I like putting that overlay, and the best thing about it is that it's a simple just toggle switch that you can turn on and off really quickly rather than doing the dry erase marker and putting little dots all over your monitor. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I use it all the time. I mean, there's a cheat there. If you don't really want to use that, or you're not using Maya, or you're using some other animation software, you can just put an acetate graph over your monitor and stick that to your monitor, and it'll do the same thing. You have to it'll be a little pain in the ass that you're putting it up and down all the time, but it helps a ton. I thought Graham was weird seeing a big old like graph all over his screen, and I was like, that's really ingenious.
No, I've seen you doing it. I'm like, yeah, I could do that, but I prefer drawing on my monitor and getting it super dirty.
Yeah. This is a good one. I got this one from Nick Bruno.
Oh, cool.
He's good. He's a supervising animator at Blue Sky. Can you believe that, Pete? Huh?
Nah. He was the new asshole when I was.
Yeah, he was. So,
new ass.
He was. All right, we're going with the babies. The baby's back. The baby's going good.
I wanted to delete the app, but I was like, nah. I'm on that dumb podcast. I gotta.
All right, Nick. Physical comedy is best on the offbeat. Have you heard him talk about this?
Maybe.
Anyways, he clued me into it, this cool technique, which you squeeze a little bit of extra surprise, and thus it's a little bit more funny. So most animated scenes tend to have like a musical rhythm, right? Like you can usually time out. You're seeing like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like maybe it's the way they step. Yeah. Get the drumstick out. So it's like a 1, 2, 2. Okay, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I feel bad for your wives, man.
Wait, what?
I feel bad for your wives.
Oh yeah. Well, in that case, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1.
It's like a couple typewriters.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so imagine your animation scene has that. A little bit of rhythm, and usually you can find it. Like you can almost like feel the music when you're doing a shot. Like a lot of times I'll like do little sound effects, like whoop, boom, dim, boom, dim. Like you can kind of feel it. So the key to adding a bit of comedy, and especially physical comedy, is to make sure that last little joke or that physical beat actually happens on the offbeat, because the audience is expecting 1, 2, 3, 4. They get the feeling too, and then if you put it right in the middle, it actually like jolts them a little bit, and it actually becomes a little bit more funny. So I have an example.
Here we go.
I'm going to whore myself out and talk about an animation I just did.
You would. Jeff Gabor, God in his eyes.
I have not said that all that often. All right, so I just did this. I think Pete, you saw it, the little like ugly Link animation I did. Maybe you did.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. I have to check it out.
I'll post it on Twitter off this feed.
Oh yeah, it's not like you were waiting to fucking do that.
Please do, because I want to see it.
All right, cool.
You should also make it a GIF, not just a video.
I don't know how to do that.
You can export.
And then how do I...
You can export GIFs straight from TV Paint.
Yeah, and then how do I see the stats and feel better about myself from seeing the numbers climb on Vimeo? Right? Let's think, Michael.
All right,
so the shot has a little ugly version of Link come out, and he throws a boomerang, and you can hear the rhythm because of the sound of the boomerang, so I made the sound like... Right? And then when it comes back. So that rhythm, like that's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, real quick. And then when it hits him back in the face, that happened on the offbeat. And I think it made it a little bit more surprising and a little bit funnier. And I did it on purpose, remembering what Nick taught me. So it's good stuff. You should try it.
I will try it.
That's excellent.
My animation.
That's an excellent tip.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nicholas Joseph Bruno.
Hey, those were all the animation tips. Did you like them? Pete, those were good, right?
Yeah. Mostly Jeff's, but yeah.
I especially like number 32.
We're only doing 1 through 25, you dope.
Ah, fuck. It was, for all the avid listeners, that was a callback joke to the joke I made at the beginning of this very podcast that you just listened through all the way. Congratulations.
If you did listen to all the way through the podcast, come up to me. Give me a high five. I'll know what it meant. Right? No? Okay, give Michael a slap on the butt.
Only people we know listen to this. Everybody slaps me on the butt.
Okay.
So we can say whatever we want now because nobody's going to be at this point in the video or the podcast.
Well, fine. I'm cutting it. This has been Just a Few More Minutes podcast where three veterans of the animation and video game industry talk about exactly that, animation video games. Talk to you next time.